Hello, everyone. I am Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and I'm excited to be here today. Before we started, I was speaking with my guest about Adora Therapy, which is my friend's store in North Carolina, and she sent me some products because I'm going to be on her Instagram Live in the near future. And one of them is this room boost, and it's for prosperity. And I was just spraying it because I love the smell. And I was thinking it must work because in the last 2 days I picked up like 2-3 grand that I wasn't expecting. So hey, there's some prosperity right there. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We have a very special guest today. Her name is Dr. Bridget Cooper, and she is more commonly and lovingly called Dr. B. She's going to be joining us in just a moment. I just wanted to share with you guys that she's an author. She's an amazing soul. So much fun, so much great energy. You're going to love her. She is unflappable. Let's bring her to the show. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Oh my gosh, with an intro like that, will you be my PR person throughout my life? My walking fan club, my walk-in places,
That's the thing is we were talking about this before, and I was thinking about what can I say that would be more about who you are versus the things that you've done, because
Right.
I think that we are enough just as we are, and we don't have to do anything to earn that. So, but you have done some amazing things, and we'll get into that. But first, I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself and your wellness journey.
Yeah, that is a great question, Julianne. So I'm actually a California native. We had spoken about that, I think, in our intro call. But I grew up here in the Northeast and have lived on the East Coast most of my life. And I started my business to really help other people with their wellness journey, in a sense, their kind of internal a wellness journey. I love your tagline, by the way. It's more than broccoli and burpees, right? And I'm covering the non-broccoli and burpees thing, right? I do like broccoli. I've done a couple of burpees, but my kind of space is in another way. I think for a lot of us who have grown up and who hasn't, right, in some sort of dysfunction or challenge or, crises, whether they be medical, spiritual, financial, relational, I think I learned from those experiences how to gather strength and resources by falling down and having to pick myself back up. So really, I just try to teach my clients and the people that I come into contact with more of our cheat codes so that they aren't kind of just drowning in some of that experience like I did, I think, for way too many years. Life and the short journey we have here is precious. And I'm all about trying to give people the freedom and capacity to be able to live this life large and out loud.
I love that, large and out loud. Just owning who you are, and instead of trying to conform. And I really like this idea of cheat codes. I mean, especially in the United States, one of my previous coaches said something, and I don't know if he made it up, but he said we live in a microwave society. And
always looking for a quick fix, like a way to kind of circumvent things. And I grew up with watching like Woody Allen kind of, movies where everyone was just laying out on a Freudian couch trying to analyze all their problems. And I mean this sincerely, and I don't want to disparage, therapists, because I think there's so many tactics in therapy that work so well for clients. But what I found in my own journey was the longer I stayed telling the story of how I got burned and hurt and traumatized, the more I got stuck in it energetically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, relationally. And so I needed other very action-oriented, very, kind of shifting ways to move myself out of those spaces, or I think they would have swallowed me up.
I'm really glad that you said that, because I've had my own experience with therapists, and yes, I will never put down a therapist, and I've had plenty of them help me, but I've also gotten to the point where I needed to move past certain things instead of dwelling on something that I don't want to keep camping out there.
Right. It got to the point for me, and I joked with some other, recovering traumatized people about it. And I said, I dreaded the change to a new therapist because I knew that we were going to spend the first at least 2 or 3 sessions regurgitating my entire history, right? And getting stuck in this past focus of how hurt I'd been. It didn't matter how much I'd moved through it. It didn't matter how much I healed it. I abhorred that part of the process because really, to have this own your wellness mindset, this growth mindset, is not to disparage or discount the past that we've experienced, but to put it in its right light so it can actually push us toward the future that we desire and stop handing our future, our present and our future over to past influences that are in most cases long gone. Like they have no memory or regard for us anymore. And we are just still churning in their stuff. So yeah.
I think that's a really good point. The thing that I would say about working with therapists is that I learned how to communicate better with the things that have already happened. So, but I also don't want to keep regurgitating the story in that hurt place because I'm no longer there. So,
right.
but there's one thing I really want to point out about this, because it keeps like blasting through my mind, this idea of cheat codes.
Yeah.
And, it's not that you're circumventing anything. It's kind of more, and this is what I feel the need to say this for the audience. It's like, we don't need to go back to the horse and buggy. We have the car.
Right, exactly. Like we understand how the wheel works. We don't need to keep talking about the wheel anymore. And the more we learn about the brain, the more we learn about, kind of how people work together, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. Mm-hmm. Right. There are so many people who have come before us who have done so much of the heavy lifting and hard work of understanding. And we continue to evolve in our understanding about how the brain works, how people are, where, the energetic, footprint of people, how that transmits. Like we're learning more, but there's so much we've already learned, and we can learn how to let go of some of those aspects of ourselves that no longer serve us because they weren't put there by us. In many cases, they were put there by experiences when we had no other kind of resource. And now knowing how we work, just like we have cheat codes, that if you don't get proper rest, you're going to be a mess. That if you don't properly hydrate, you're going to get a headache. Whatever those things are, those are already, you have your cheat codes. Right? You know what it takes in order to live the best life that you've lived up to this point. You know how to do that. So the cheat codes I think that you probably work with your clients on, I know I work with my clients on, is just not getting lost in that analysis paralysis and instead making deliberate, intentional movements and shifts to be able to take ourselves to another place, another better place every day.
I like that idea. And something that comes to mind too is this idea of competing, because I'm a recovering perfectionist, and
right?
It's still something that I'm very aware of. I can put it in its place, but I don't know that it'll ever go away.
Right. I love that you said that, actually. If I can pause you for a second. I think sometimes we have this misnomer that if we have this quality about us or this tendency or this just struggle, that what recovering from it means or what healing from it means it doesn't exist anymore. It's just gone. No. It means that you've turned down the temperature of it, right? You've dialed back the intensity of its. You've made it yourself aware of it so you can take intentional action to shift it, but you've also turned the volume down so it isn't like loud, like a dance club at 2 a.m. kind of, volume. And you've also shortened its duration of distracting you from things that matter. So you learn the lesson more quickly. It doesn't mean that you're going to avoid meeting people who remind you of people that you've been hurt by in the past, for instance. It just means you're not going to let them all the way into your inner sanctum, or once they get in, you're going to be like, okay, you need to go, right? So those things about ourselves, perfectionism, whatever, it's about turning that dial down and then shifting the duration of the time that it controls or influences any part of your decisions.
I'm really glad that you highlighted that, because so many of us, we'll think I did all the work, and then something happens, there's a trigger, and then we shame ourselves and talk down to ourselves like, why is this? But
it's the wrong thing. Like, listen, I won't speak freely because I have been known to drop a couple swear bombs, but like, you're going to meet turkeys, right? You're going to meet them. Whatever your growth and development is, it doesn't mean they're not going to show up on the scene. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that bad things are going to stop happening. It doesn't mean that the world is all of a sudden going to operate the way you want it to. You're going to keep hitting things, and it's going to find its way in. And every time you get to go, do I want to do that thing like I've always done that thing? Or do I want to do that thing slightly differently, very differently, right? And then that's the show of growth, is the awareness of, oh, it's there again. If we remember back for years that we struggled with certain issues, we didn't even know that they were happening. Right? We didn't even have awareness. And now that we've got awareness, we're like, well, now it should be gone. Like, think of all the years you spent completely clueless of your own head trash. You didn't even know it was there. You just thought this is just how things are,
Exactly. I always like to do this or give this example because it's really silly. I used to be a personal trainer, and before that, and I work with a personal trainer for myself, even though I know how to do it. But I remember when I first started working with a personal trainer, it was so hard. And I kept thinking to myself, I can't wait until the time that it'll be easier. And it never got easier, because every time I got better, it got,
you level up.
Exactly. And it took me 8 months to finally figure out, oh, this is how it's supposed to work.
Right. It's not like you go to the gym, you get fit, and then you're like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be awesome, right? You'd be like, I mean, for some of us love to work out, but like for those of us who don't like to work out, you'd be like, oh no, I get to check the box. Once I get in shape, then I'm just done. No, exactly. You have to stay in shape. And in order to stay in shape, things are going to get harder to do.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because it's what it is with the wellness journey. It's like, you never arrive as long as you're alive.
Correct. Yeah. You just keep going. It's just, it's a constant evolution. I think for me anyway, on my journey, I think what's gotten better is my dark sense of humor has served me well. And I'm able to laugh at myself and other people and poke fun, not because I want them to feel humiliated or shamed, but to be able to laugh at, oh my gosh, that was stupid. Like, what was I thinking? Why did I harm myself that way? And I think that skill gets stronger. That muscle gets stronger, talking about muscles, as you get older and through more of the journeys, is you're like, oh, like why, versus just crying in the corner.
I love that, because I like this idea of not making everything so serious. Right. Why does it have to be so serious? It could be a serious thing, but that, how we respond is up to us. We can take some of the sting out of it if we can laugh at ourselves in the situation. We don't have to be embarrassed or humiliated or any of those things. Why not just own it?
No, and think about, like, you see those magnets some people have in their fridges, and it has like how I'm feeling today. And you're supposed to put, sometimes they're like bears or whatever, but they're all these facial expressions. And I think sometimes we get really stuck with the idea that if we have one emotion, it's the only emotion that we're permitted to have about that experience. Mm-hmm. And it's just not true, because I can be angry about something and sad and amused and encouraged, and like all the same aspects of the same exact identical experience. But sometimes with that kind of microwave culture, as you put it, we want to look for the one thing, and then we dive hard into that, denying the fullness of our human experience, which is we feel lots of different things at lots of different moments. Mm-hmm. I had a friend recently whose spouse passed, and I know that she has such complicated emotions around his passing because there is a sorrow that is unmatched. And at the same time, there is a relief of his releasing the journey of pain and suffering, right? And then there's the rejoicing of the time that they spent together. And then there's the fear of what might come next, right? It's not one thing. There's not one aspect. Yeah.
You know, I'm glad that you decided to share that, because my cousin passed away recently, and he was like the last living relative on that side of my family. And so there's all sorts of thoughts, feelings, emotions that come with it. And some of them are rational and some of them aren't. But it doesn't matter. They are what they are. And I don't have to connect to any of them. And I think too, and the reason why I really am glad you brought that particular example up is something that I want to share. And I think you'll agree with this, is even when you are grieving, there will be times when you're happy.
Yeah.
There will be times when you feel joyful or you want to laugh about something. We don't have to make ourselves wrong.
Right. Or embarrassed. Like, how can I laugh? Right.
Yeah. If you're not betraying your sadness.
Okay. So at risk of alienating, hopefully none of your listeners or viewers. So and this is a perfect example of like, life sometimes is both funny and tragic. So long story, but my mother, we had to go to the funeral home to identify her remains, her body, before she was cremated. And we're on the drive up. There was all this stress going on, all these like wrinkles, as there are when someone passes away suddenly, and you're trying to like put all sorts of pieces together, and family emotions are running high and all of those things. And we're on our way, and I'm flying. Like, I mean, I think thankfully there were no police officers on the road at that time, because I was breaking so many speed limits trying to get to this funeral home in time. And so I'm about to get off the highway, and my boyfriend at the time was in the vehicle, and he had a very like proper way about him, like you have to say good morning when you see someone, it's not just like, hey, right? There's all these things. So a very, very tie driven, jacketed guy. And I see him, he starts laughing, right? And he's trying not to laugh, but I can tell he's laughing. And I said, what is going on? And he's like, I can't. I said, what? And like, after like 4 demands, he points to the radio, simply points to the radio. And Alicia Keys' Girl Is on Fire was playing on the radio. And when I tell you, Julianne, I almost drove off the road. I was crying. I was laughing so hard, because I knew, like, knowing my mom had a very sick, dark sense of humor. She sent that right to the radio station right at that very moment to break all the tension. And I was like, oh, that's good. That was good, And it didn't make the loss any lighter. It simply made it real. Right? Yeah. Because whenever you have all of these, you have all those various experiences and emotions with each of the people or experiences that we lose, that's just part of it, right? Part of it is finding that laughter, finding that other layer of the full complement of emotions that we feel for the people and places that we connect with over our time here.
Beautifully said. On that note, it is time to go to a commercial break. So we're going to be back in just a minute. And for those of you who are watching us live, I want to say hello. Thank you for being here. When we come back, we are going to continue this conversation about, cheat codes and how to just deal with life on life's terms. We'll be back in just a moment.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's bring Dr. B back to the show. Welcome back.
Thank you. I was jamming out to some of that music for your commercials. I was like, she's got this, even like off air, she's having fun.
I love that. That's, yeah, that's what we strive for. We want it to be fun, entertaining, even while we are talking about other things. So, I was thinking during the commercials, because I've seen them before, I was thinking about a little bit of our conversation before we started and how, we both are not really into this whole thing about like going through credentials when we're describing people and all of that. That being said, there are some things that you've done that I want to highlight. And one of them is being an author. And for those of you who are watching that have never written a book, or those of you that have, you understand exactly how much work goes into that research. It could be something that you know inside and out, and you still have to research. It's not the easiest task in the world. And you've written books, like not just one.
No. I started my dissertation. I did my dissertation because I have a doctorate. So I wrote a dissertation there's 374 pages long. So that in and of itself, I feel like was my first book, but like I didn't count the one. So since then I've written 7, published 6. So the 7th is coming out in October, but yeah, I didn't start out thinking of myself as an author. I thought of myself as being, a coach, a consultant, a speaker, trying to educate people and help people with their own kind of internal messaging and external relationships. And so I wrote the first book just to be kind of my credential piece. And then people just kept coming to me saying, you should write a book about, you should write a book about, you should write a book about. And I'm shameless. And if somebody gives me an idea and I think it's a good one, okay, let me go do that. So then came the next handful.
I really like that. Now, this might be an unusual question, but I've never had the opportunity to ask this one before. So, okay, you are a teacher of sorts, a coach, all of these things, and an author. Now, I know as a coach and an author myself that I don't want somebody to just buy my book for the sake of buying it. What is your hope and your intention for the people that purchase your books and read them?
It's a great question. So I think it has evolved over time. I think early on, I was looking for it to be this like companion to people who might not either be ready to hire a coach or have the financial resources to be able to have someone accompany them on their journey, or the time, how they're perceiving all of that, who had any sort of resistance. I wanted just to give this piece of healing and resource to people. And over time, this latest book that's coming out in October, it is that, but it's also, I think, for me, it's a way of giving this to, or selling this, however, to potential clients so that they can have a resource of all the different, and that'll take you, that link will take you to the Unflappable community, where you can sign up for updates on when the book's coming out, and also direct you to purchasing the book once it's available in October. And it's all of my tools. So yes, it's a toolkit for people to be able to use, but I also hope that people will read it and recognize that there is so much opportunity for them to have parts of their lives that are currently causing them stress, anxiety, frustration, misery, even that there's a person out there who can help them walk along with them on that journey, because we're not meant to do this by ourselves, you know? So I think of this as probably one of the first books that I've really had that as an intention of it being a conduit for people to come closer to me versus a thing for people to just kind of have somewhere out there on their own.
You know, I think that that's a really good way to put that. And because I've struggled with this whole idea myself, and the book there's value in it.
Sure.
There's so much value in it.
Yeah.
And it can only get you so far. It's like that with anything. So,
you know, because what you do, right, you're writing. So I have all these tools, because how Unflappable came to be is that over the last 20 years of working as a coach, a consultant, a speaker, an advisor of sorts, is that I've developed all of these tools that people really resonate with because they're so easy to remember. They're very intuitive. I usually have a funny story that I tell along with it, which kind of clicks it in their brain. And I had all these tools and I was presenting on them, but realizing that while I was presenting on them, I didn't have them all in one place. So I would be sending people to different books for different tools, and then some tools that never ended up in any books because they just weren't relevant to that particular, you know, that narrow band that I was writing on. So I went back and I had like 80 tools, and I ended up combining some of them. But I put all those tools together. But when I write the tools, I'm being as kind of universally applicable as I possibly can be in writing to an audience that I believe I am writing to. But sometimes even my clients, I'll teach them a tool. They'll say, yeah, but how does that apply to this person in this situation with all of these layers and details? And then I go, oh yeah, that tool, but you got to grab this tool and put it with that tool. And then that's how you pull them together. You can't possibly write a book that gives all of that customization to people. I can try, but there's only so much that you can do to be able to, because our lives are common in so many ways and also so diverse in many others. There's so many nuances to our experiences, our attitudes, our thoughts and feelings that there has to have a person who guides you through how to pull those things together to create the existence that you want. It's like for everything else, there's MasterCard, right?
Yeah. I was just thinking too about the good old choose your own adventure books.
Yes. If only I could have written one like that. It would have been like 800 pages long or something. So.
Oh my goodness, yes. But I'm really glad that we're having this conversation about this in particular because, a lot of people, they don't understand. And I was one of them. So, I'm not trying to put anybody down, but I'm like, why isn't this book working for me the way it is for so-and-so? Why is it?
Right. And I think sometimes, as much as, and we talked before about like telling our stories over and over again in therapy or coaching, some of it is though, that people need to feel like they've been heard and their particular situation has been validated before they can take that chance to try something that you're offering to them, right? Mm-hmm. We need first to be able to establish trust, and the trust comes from seeing themselves in the example or the tool that you're giving them. And for some, you can, and if the writing is good enough, most people can see themselves, but some of us struggle because we have some very unique experiences that time over time, we haven't found the key to unlock those doors. So we're just not sure that key will unlock it. And being able to have someone alongside showing them and giving examples and being able to kind of walk them across that resistance is invaluable.
Exactly. And as you were saying that, I was also thinking of the idea of having this expectation. I know that I've had this, that one person or one thing or one resource is going to be the cure-all for everything.
I mean, we are, right? I mean, Julianne, you are, and I am, if they tap into us. But aside from us, you're right. Not one place or person that's going to. Yeah, you're totally right. There isn't. And part of it is because we are a product of everything we've experienced to that point, all the decisions we've made, the experiences we've had. So when we pick up a resource, it adds a little piece to us. If we receive that little piece, we go on to the next resource, then we pick up a piece of that. So by the time we get to resource number 5, we're different than we were when we started at resource number 1. So it really is part of this kind of potpourri of human development, of figuring out kind of what all those pieces are that allow us to be better and better, smarter and smarter, kinder and kinder over the years.
Exactly. And something that I always struggled with too, that, I think that I hear this from other coaches and other people who have coaches, is this idea that you have to stay completely loyal to that one coach. But as you grow and change, you may stay with your coach, but you might want another one too. And it's not cheating. It's not.
It's different perspectives, I mean, I think we all, especially if you're a small business owner, even a large business owner, you need an advisory team, right? You need different perspectives, however that comes to be, whether it's different coaches, whether it's, friends, colleagues, industry experts, what have you, because we all have a slightly different tack on something. And if we have the trust and the ability to share that, we can really enrich each other's experiences.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And even Jesus had 12 apostles. So
there you go. Well, we know what happened there, but yeah, you have to be careful.
Best example, but I just like this idea of pulling from different places and picking what resonates with you and leaving the rest behind, and not making somebody right or wrong, but just appreciating what they offer and who they are and all that. And
and seeing from their perspective, that makes sense, right?
Exactly.
And I think a lot of times we don't allow others or ourselves the grace of compassion. And when I talk about compassion, I don't just mean like, oh, it's okay, that's terrible, I understand. When I talk about compassion, I talk about it from this framework, which is, of course. That compassion says, of course, that however you meet someone, whether it's you or someone else, however they are coming to you, however you are coming to you in that moment, is so expected, because it's a direct result of every experience you've had and every decision you've made that have brought you collectively to that moment. And I don't know about you, but as a coach, and even a friend, people will come to me and look to give me shock value, to say, can you believe so-and-so did such and such? And I say, yep, I could have predicted exactly that, because I was watching what they did before, who they are and where they come from, and what would create the environment for them to behave in exactly that way. And sometimes we just don't use that a compassionate response to say, well, of course they would behave like that. Of course they would feel like that. Of course, not because I agree with what the decisions they've made and the experiences they've had and what they've cultivated from that, but because it's very predictable. It's very scientific, right? It's very much, that's exactly what would happen. If you exhaust your toddler and then you bring them into a fancy event, guess what? I don't care how well behaved they usually are. I don't care how great a parent you are. I don't care what bribes you've given them. Meltdown is going to happen. Right. And it's the same with all of us. This sense of knowing how we're going to respond in any given situation allows us the ability to come to that with grace for ourselves and other people, and stop letting ourselves down by expecting something to be different than of course it would be.
I like that idea of course.
Of course. Of course. Right.
It doesn't make people wrong.
No, it's just, of course, I think one of the benefits I know from my own, deep and repetitive analysis of my own early experiences was having this drive to understand why the people in my environment hurt me and hurt themselves in the way that they did. I just needed to know. I needed to understand. There was this just drive to me. And in doing that, it wasn't that I was excusing the bad behavior. I was simply coming to the conclusion that all roads met in that place. Mm-hmm. That was where they were going to end up, given all of those experiences, which allowed me to, again, forgive, but also just to simply respect people as they came to me, to know that I don't need to feel let down by their behavior, because I don't have an expectation that it's going to be different than one might expect it to be. Not, and that just like when you take away all of that disappointment, like we, oh my gosh, we gather it, we collect it like it's, I don't know, Matchbox cars or, whatever, right? We're like, oh, I'm disappointed about that. I'm disappointed about that. I can't believe they did that. I can't believe they did that. They shouldn't have done that. And then we're just weighed down by this level of like, I can't trust anyone. I can't believe that people act like that. When you start just looking and going, yeah, they would act like that. Yep. We take away all that emotional weight that weighs us down day over day, time after time. And it just allows us to be, that's kind of the purpose of Unflappable, is to help us to see those things so clearly so that we cannot be thrown off our center when people do exactly what we would expect them to do. Right? Like we would see it coming and just witness instead of trying to get all caught up in it.
I love that. I think that is such a beautiful distinction and way to look at things. Something that comes up for me too is I have this friend, and she was in an abusive relationship, and I'm not saying that she deserved any of the treatment that she received. What I am saying is I can look at it and go, well, what did you expect was going to happen when, you keep going back,
right?
You expect it to be different, yet the situation and who he is has not changed or evolved into anything else. But also this idea that I think a lot of us have is that that we're somehow going to have an explanation that will take away the pain. What happened. It's like the why.
Right. Well, yeah. And you may never know why. You may know why, but it doesn't you can't take away past
happened. Exactly.
Yeah. Like it just is. It just happened. And tell yourself a story. One of the tools that I use with clients is to write a letter from the person you're seeking the explanation from. Mm-hmm. As you would want them to explain it to you. What would make you feel better? Mm-hmm. Write the letter and be done.
I like that, because we're telling ourselves a story anyway, so we might as well tell ourselves one that works.
Put pen to paper and tuck it in our underwear drawer and pull it out when we need reminding. You know what I mean? But like, it's this this search at the expense of our own calm, clarity, and it's an expensive energy. We only have so much energy. We only have so much time, and using it and throwing it away on causes that have shown us, have demonstrated to us that they aren't going to produce the result we're looking for, that's on us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On that note, it's time for us to go to our last commercial break. We're going to be back in just a moment. And I said hello to everybody who's watching us live. Now it's my turn to say hello to everybody who's watching us on demand. Thank you so much for being here. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation about being unflappable and what that means. We'll be right back in just a moment.
Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversation. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's bring Dr. B back. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So, as I readjust, I went and ran somewhere really quick.
I did too. I filled up on more water, trying to stay hydrated with your Own Your Wellness precepts.
It makes a difference. And a lot of people don't realize too that when you don't drink enough water, how that affects our brain, how it can cause brain fog. And even, a lot of people think, well, I'll just drink a cup of coffee. I'm tired. No,
Not the same. Not the
not
same.
the same. Drink water when you're tired. It actually helps. Maybe part of the reason why you are is because you don't have enough water.
Not drinking enough water. You got it.
So before we went to commercial break, I was thinking about, this idea of letting people show up as who they are and not really expecting anything else from them. Sometimes, and I kind of want to take this a step further and see what your take is, because you're the expert. Now, what I'm talking about is sometimes things happen. Yeah. And, life happens, or, there's an assault, for example, or a theft or something that, we didn't necessarily choose for ourselves. Right. And I know that there's a lot of thought behind that, like, well, there's something that, brought that into you. And I don't subscribe to that per se. I feel like, why are you shaming yourself? You didn't ask for it. But there's another question too that always comes up, and it's, why me? And I always try to turn it around and say, why not me?
Those were the exact words that I had in my head.
So you feel the same way, like
I do. So I have to back up. So my mom, she was very metaphysical, right? And she taught me from a young age that all of the experiences that I had were all of my choosing. Mm-hmm. Which, like, I understood kind of where the purpose was coming from, but when you have been exposed to, been on the receiving end of the kind of the deep abuse that was going on in our household, I was like, you talk about shame. Like, wait a second. So not only am I feeling hurt and sad about this, but I have to blame myself because I chose it. Like, whoa, like there's just, that's a lot there. Mm-hmm. I think if there's any value in any of that, the one like slice I would pull out is not why did I bring this to myself, but what can I take from this to transform and transmute this to make myself even better than I was before. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you a story because I think it really does. I think it illustrates your point about the why me part. So about 5 years ago, I don't know if you know this about me, but 5 years ago, I had gone on a trip with my daughters. We'd gone over to Ireland, had a fantastic time. I went out to dinner with a friend of mine and was sharing all the pictures of our journey. I was on this like high. I had, all this work booked. I had done my TEDx talk. It was just released that week. So I was finally able to start, when I got back from vacation, able to start marketing it. And I went out to dinner with a friend of mine. We were on our way back, and a driver for hire blew through a four-way intersection and slammed into the passenger side of the vehicle where I was seated and flipped us onto our roof and sent us up the road. And in that accident, I suffered a traumatic brain injury. So I actually lost like 25 IQ points. I have a hearing and auditory and visual processing disorder. I'm drinking water not only for hydration, but because I'm constantly nauseous from all of that. I have memory issues, all these things that happened. And I'll tell you, I without question, there were many times throughout this journey that I have said, why me? Right? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I have had those moments of self-pity, bonbons on the couch, Netflix binges, the whole 9 yards. Right. And, but it had nothing to do with me. I happened to be in that intersection. The why me was we got into the car faster or slower than we might have. If it hadn't have been me, I knew the people in the car behind me, And I remember sitting with and they were a lovely couple. And I cannot imagine, had it happened to them, what would have happened to their lives, And I actually said to my attorney at one point, I said, it couldn't have happened to a better person. And he was like, what? And I said, because I've been training for this moment my entire life to figure out how to take this awfulness, right? To take this terrible experience and make it into something that's going to help other people. Like that's the part of it. So to me, there is this burden that comes with any one of those terrible things that happens to us in our lives. But there's also this rare opportunity to use it to show other people how to move through that same experience with the tools that you've learned that they might not have learned yet. A quote from one of my favorite movies of all time is Collateral Beauty. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. I don't get any kick for it. I should at this point, but in this movie, one of the actors says, don't forget to look for the collateral beauty. That even in these dark moments of the soul, even in these horrible experiences, it's not about looking for why me. It's not about looking for, the shame of it or I brought this to myself. It's simply to notice that even in the worst horrible experiences that happen to us, there is always something to be found in it that can make your or someone else's life better. There always is that opportunity. I think about like John Walsh, if you remember him from America's Most Wanted, right? His son is taken from him in the most tragic, horrifying sorts of ways, parent nightmare. And he turns around and finds thousands of people who need to be brought to justice for doing similar things to other people.
Yeah, exactly.
If that had not happened to him, that whole empire probably never would have existed. So I
love that idea too. And, the way that I because I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater as far as like the idea of calling things towards me or whatnot. But what really made it easy for me to understand in a different way is basically, it's what you're talking about. But I use the example of somebody TPing my front yard.
Right.
Now, if somebody TPs my front yard, I didn't ask for that. But it's up to me to clean it up because it's my front yard.
Right.
Right. So I get to choose how I'm going to clean that up.
Correct.
Am I going to let it sit there? Am I going to complain about it the entire time? Am I going to have fun and turn it into a game? What am I going to do with that thing that happened to my front yard?
Correct. Yeah. And I think, you know, and the lesson that you can, like, what is this asking me to learn, to take from this moment? You know, if I had been driving, it might have been to slow down, to speed up, to pay attention, to look down streets, to slow down at intersections, which it did, even though I wasn't driving. But like, what's the lesson here? So sometimes, I mean, honestly, here's the thing. If you had had your front yard TP'd and you had been being a jerk to all of your neighbors, you know, flying through the neighborhood, leaving your own litter in people's yards, not picking up your dog's, you know, excrement, whatever, then you could look in the mirror and go, Jillian, you're kind of a jerk.
You asked this, yeah.
Right? Like I think there's this like balancing of not taking everything everyone does as a reflection of us and what we deserve or need or whatever, but also not throwing, like you said, the baby out with the bathwater, and not looking, maybe it's me who's the jerk here. Like, maybe I do need to look at myself, because sometimes we get into the whatever people do, it has nothing to do with us. Except for when it does.
Yeah.
Right? You know,
I agree with that. It's not all or nothing thinking. It can be, you know, something in between. And
right.
Yeah, I mean, and every situation is different too. So
absolutely. Well, I hope you never get your front yard TP.
Well, if I do,
yeah. And if it does happen, I hope you get it before the rain comes. That's all I hope for. Yeah.
Well, we are almost out of time. We only have literally about 30 seconds left. I just want to mention that this is the place to go for your book. Come here. In October, it's going to be released. Plus, you've got 6 other ones. So there's plenty to choose from. And also, if you want to reach out to Dr. B, you can email right here as well.
Excellent.
So I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. It has been so much fun for me.
I know. Why can't we keep going? Maybe this is fun.
We'll have to have you back. That's for sure.
We'll solve all the world's problems together with you and your viewers.
I know, right? But anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And everyone, that is all the time that we have for today. So enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you again soon.